she's a mountain, then you're an ocean.
Hi, everybody. This is Lori, and I am the founder and CEO of Inclusivity. And this is our podcast, as well as the podcast of Alliance for Sustainability, which is our new podcast partner. And the name of the podcast is Inclusivi-TEA's Sustainability. And our goal with the podcast is to interview creative people from all walks of life and talk about how they are creative, how they got to where they are, and also sort of their vision about sustainability, because we believe creativity and sustainability go hand in hand. So I'm extraordinarily excited to introduce our guest today. Her name is Teghan Devon, and she is a singer-songwriter, really talented musician who has actually worked with Inclusivity for many years, performing at various events for us. And I want to especially thank you, Teghan, because this is actually the second time you've done this podcast. There was a glitch and the last tape got lost, and you graciously agreed to come back. So thank you for that.
I'm so happy to be here.
Well, it is always lovely to see you. So I think that last time, too, we started with a question that is just sort of, tell me about how when you first knew you were musical, when you first sort of decided you wanted to do something in music.
So I started writing songs and playing guitar in 5th grade. I actually did my 5th grade talent show was the first time that I ever performed, and I did the song Best Day by Taylor Swift, and I played guitar and I sang. And that was the first time that I ever really felt like seen. I just remember being a 5th grader playing and singing pretty well, and everyone being shocked that this 5th grader could play and sing as well as she did.
That's amazing.
And I just fell in love with it, and I continued to take guitar lessons, and I just kept writing, and that was really my main thing, songwriting. And I didn't know that that's what I wanted to do for my career until I started going to all these songwriting camps in high school. And I actually went to one at Berkeley College of Music in Boston, and that's where I go to college now. And at that camp, I met a bunch of other musicians and other songwriters that loved music just as much as I did. And that was when I fell in love. I was just like, this is what I want to do.
So, Teghan, do you remember what the first song you wrote was about?
I have no idea.
Okay. I'm just curious if there was a specific thing that you were writing about in 5th grade. How did your family react to your interest in music?
They have always supported me. My dad was a drummer, and he was actually the reason that I started playing guitar. I wanted to be a little drummer girl like him, and for some reason he wanted me to play guitar. And he was just really supportive, and my mom was really supportive, and they've always been that way. They are not afraid to tell me, if my song is not that great, or, if I don't sound that good. They will, break to me the hard truth. But they've always supported me, and I'm really, really thankful for that.
So when you were in elementary school and high school, were you in the band? Were you in the choir? Did you do things at school musically?
I was in choir.
Okay.
I was in choir, and then when I got to high school, I was the vice president of our school's guitar club, and I was just kind of like the known songwriter. I would bring my guitar to gym class, and we'd play music instead of walking around the track.
And did your gym teacher support that?
He didn't really care.
Okay. That's pretty fun. So what's the first song that you can remember that you wrote that stands out to you?
I remember the name of the first song I wrote. It was called You Gotta Understand Me Now.
Okay.
And I remember the first song that I played on guitar that really made me love guitar was Blackbird by the Beatles. I was so proud that I had learned that, and that just made me fall in love with the instrument. I really played guitar for my songwriting up until then. It wasn't my first love, and then when I learned how to play that song, I just fell in love with it.
So now would you say the songwriting is more what you're doing or the guitar, or are they so interwoven at this point that
I'd say they're a lot more interwoven. I do love guitar, but I think songwriting will always be my first love and the reason that I keep learning to keep my songs interesting.
so why? Tell me what it is about songwriting that really pulls at you.
I think there's something beautiful about explaining something through song, about putting emotions to words and to be able to connect with people through that. I think there's something beautiful just about connecting with people through music.
Mhm.
And everyone really can connect through music. It's a universal language and I just want to be a part of that.
I love that. And I think you're right that I think all of us probably have a song or several that are in our memories. It's kind of like smell. The sense of
Yeah,
smell really triggers memories. And I think song is the same thing that most of us have as we go through our lives, songs that trigger my grandfather or songs that trigger my wedding or, other moments of joy and sadness for me.
absolutely.
So, do you have a song, just looking back, that you think this is my very favorite song that I've written, which I know is hard because I suspect it changes, but do you have something that kind of stands out for you?
It honestly does change because I think I've grown a lot over time. And yeah, I think they're all my babies. I love every single one of them. But, like, for instance, on my first album that I released, Fingers Crossed, people would ask me, "What's your favorite song on this album?" And I'd be like, "You're gonna make me choose?" Like, I don't know. I love them all. I think that I love them. They're all my favorites at different times. Um, I think right now my favorite song is a song called "Strong and Lonely," and I don't think you've heard that, Lori. Actually, it's
I was going to say, I don't think I've heard that, Tegan.
it's a newer song. I hope to release it on whatever future project I do. Um, Basically about um, after the end of a relationship and missing someone that you've broken up with
Mhm.
and thinking, oh, I have to be strong through this, but wanting to, call them and wanting to go back to them, but knowing that you're going to be better off being strong even if you're lonely.
Well, that's a song that everybody will be able to relate to.
Unfortunately, I think so.
Yeah, it's a very strong, I think, universal for most people. Probably not everybody, but most people will be able to relate to that. I think it's interesting that you said that, Tegan, because I think my experience is that artists will say the same thing, that if you ask them for the favorite work they've done, it changes over time. So that every time you ask, there's something new they've done. And I think it's all about development.
Yeah.
I think that that's a really good way to put it, that every time your style changes or you learn something new, you have a whole new batch of songs that go with that new knowledge
Hmm.
because it's an art.
Yep.
So, who would you say, or what would you say is one of the most influential things that have happened during your life that it has influenced your songwriting? Because I think songwriting, if we think of it that way as an art, then I think that there's probably all sorts of development and learning that goes on with that. So, for you, what has been kind of key?
Well, I went through a phase of having no confidence in myself, like right after high school or like right before college. Or actually, I think my last year of high school, I just wasn't very confident in myself as a performer, especially. And then I graduated and I started going to open mics
Mhm.
and playing for fun. And that kind of opened up that world again for me. I remembered why I loved performing in the first place. And I think open mics are great for that because you're surrounded by just completely different people and there's no pressure and you get to just enjoy what you do. And that's what I did. And then when I went to McNally Smith College of Music, my first college, I think that was the turning point for me
Okay.
because I was surrounded by friends that were not only my friends, but also supported me and were also people that I got to play with.
Mhm.
For instance, like my very good friend Emily Madison, who you've met, who
It's
um,
fantastic.
has played cajon, which is a box drum, with me at Inclusivity events.
Yeah.
And it was just so fun getting to play with my friends and being supported by my friends. And then I was also in these amazing songwriting classes with teachers that changed my life, and just amazing people really who loved songwriting. That was the big thing. My teachers, the people I was around, they loved what they were doing, and it was infectious. And that changed me really. It made me push myself. It made me more creative. And I think I very much miss McNally College of Music. It's been a few years since it closed down, but I'm very thankful for what I learned and for what I've gotten from that experience.
And since then, since McNally Smith kind of closed down in the middle of a year, didn't it?
Yep.
And just very suddenly, which left you kind of almost afloat.
Yeah.
What did you do after that? What's happened since then?
So I took some time off, and I recorded and released my first album, Fingers Crossed, and that is
a beautiful album.
Thank you. That is on all streaming services and platforms if you'd like to hear it. And what else did I do? I went back to college, Berklee College of Music, where I am now, and I've been there for I think 2-ish years now. And I also released in April an EP called Little Lion about the grief about losing my best friend, which just happened to be a 13-year-old yellow lab. That was very hard on me. And what do songwriters do when they go through grief? They write about it. So I wrote an EP and I released it for my baby, my yellow pup. But yeah, that's what I've been doing. And then through the pandemic, I've been doing remote learning through school and just, crossing my fingers that this is over soon.
And when will you be done with school, Teghan?
In the spring. That is my last semester. I'm very excited.
Super exciting. And what would you like to do after that? Sort of what's your next plan?
I'm going to give it a go. As a full-time artist, I'm sure I will have like part-time job to support myself, but I want to give my all to my art and see where it takes me.
So, Teghan, tell me how does that start? How do you do that? Do you reach out to places to try to get shows? Do you do more recording? What's sort of the practical step for that?
Well, I'm hoping to do some more recording and release a new project some point soon. So that would be wonderful. And then I would play shows to promote that music and to grow with my audience. So yeah, I would reach out to venues and hopefully get to play shows. Everything has changed because of the pandemic right now. But that's what I would hopefully be doing.
And do you have an agent? Do most musicians have agents?
Not at this level. I don't have anyone right now. It's just me, but that's okay.
No, you're pretty terrific. So you're in good company.
Thank you.
What's sort of, if you could say, 5 years from now, my goal is, do you have specific goals around your music? And I'm sure you do, but what are those?
Just to have released music regularly throughout the years, and I hope that in 5 years' time, I'll be able to sustain myself with just music. That would be the goal. Just doing what I love and being able to sustain myself through that.
Teghan, can you tell us, for people who haven't heard your music, how would you describe your music? Now, I will say before you say anything that at the beginning and the end of our podcast, a small part of one of Teghan's songs is being played. So there's a song that Teghan wrote called Beautiful Too, which is probably one of my favorite songs in the world. And so it's at the beginning of the podcast, that little bit of instrumental you hear, and at the end. But besides that, Teghan, how would you describe your music? How would you tell people what they're going to be listening to?
It's like singer-songwritery, but it's a mix of folk, pop, and indie rock. I have like splashes of each in there. I write songs about anything, about a relationship, a speck of dust, personal experience. Really, it can be anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful songs about anything.
Thank you.
Teghan, besides music, what are your sort of passions? What do you spend your time doing and makes you feel good?
Besides music, I am well, first of all, I love spending time with my pets. We have a 14-year-old mutt named Petey and I just forgot whether she's 7 or 8. I think she's 8 now. 8-year-old Siamese cat named Sadie, and I love them more than I love myself. And I love spending time with them. But I also am a huge women's basketball fan. So I watch
that.
Yeah, I watch the WNBA when they're on during the summer. And next week actually starts the new women's college basketball season. I'm hoping, they don't have a huge problem with COVID and have to stop. But I am so excited. I am freaking out. Like, I am the biggest fan.
How in particular did you find women's basketball?
Well, my mom went to the University of Maryland when she was in college, and my parents, they've always loved football, and my dad has been sort of into women's college basketball, and my mom has watched the women and the men. And when I was home for like a winter break a few years ago, I ended up getting to go to some of the games with my dad, and I don't know, I just love it. I really don't know why. I'm slowly and surely becoming more of a sports person, which is really weird because people in music are not normally like that.
Yeah.
I cannot play sports at all. But I like watching basketball so much, and I've been recently watching football with my parents. Really, it's a distraction from the pandemic, but basketball is my first love, truly.
So, do you have teams that you particularly support?
I do. I support the Lady Terps, the University of Maryland's women's team, and I also, with the WNBA, I honestly support all of the teams. I just love the players so much. I want everyone to win. I could never play sports.
You would not be competitive enough? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, no, I used to play basketball when I was in like elementary school, and I was horrible. And I used to do karate, and I was also horrible at that because I'm just so not intimidating, and I hate.
That's really funny.
Yeah,
If you had to name something that is a driving force for you, so something that just is sort of underneath everything, what would you say the driving force is for you? Something that pushes you forward.
I would just say that I just love what I do. I love songwriting. I go, like everybody who does this, I have writer's block, I have dry spells. And sometimes, I have songs that are hard for me to write, but that feeling when I get to finish something that I really love is just amazing. And when I get to share it with people, it's amazing. And that's what drives me. I love it. This is not an easy career, It's not something you do if you don't love it. And I love it. And it's just, this is it for me,
This is one of the reasons I love talking to creative people, Teghan, is that what I hear over and over again is, if I could do something else, it would be so much easier. And I'd love that, but I can't. This is it. This is what I have to do.
Yeah.
So I think that makes sense. And you're right. It's not an easy career. You're extraordinarily talented. And if it was just talent, you'd be incredibly successful. And I'm hoping that that's the path that comes before you after the spring. Do you play festivals? Do you enjoy doing those kinds of activities?
I have played festivals, and it's been really fun. I also I perform at these folk alliance conferences usually when the world is normal, and I'm really missing that right now. It's an excuse for basically me to see all of my like folk musicians friends, and we all come together and spend a weekend getting no sleep and listening to each other play. And it's just absolutely wholesome and wonderful. And I very much miss it. Yeah, I love doing that. And I love festivals too. And really, I just want to play for people. I miss that.
Yeah. If you had to give some advice to somebody coming up, someone who's younger and wants to be a musician, what advice would you give them?
Just enjoy it. Don't let the hardships of this industry take that away from you. Don't burn out. Make sure that you live your life in a way that you are enjoying what you're doing. Don't take it too seriously and just enjoy it for what it is.
It seems like pretty good advice for really whatever you're doing in your life is try to enjoy yourself, try to have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So, Tegan, I mentioned at the beginning that we've sort of joined with Alliance for Sustainability, and that our podcast is now called Inclusivi-TEA Sustainability. And so, I always want to end these by just saying to somebody, for you, what would you say is sort of a sustainable goal you have in your life, something that relates to sustainability and you personally?
Well, I like to think about doing the simple things by, just like recycling and reducing waste and also just being kind, and doing the small things. But also, I've thought a lot more about sustainability and conservation because for the past 2 summers, I have been a sea turtle nest monitor, and I have helped facilitate hundreds of little baby sea turtles going to the water, and it's just made me think a lot more about the environment and how I affect it. So, just been thinking about that a lot and using my experience basically to influence that.
I like that. I think I mentioned to you before the podcast started that I just wrote a book on sustainability. And when you said sort of thinking about all the little things you can do, that's exactly what the book is about, is that each of us can make little steps in our lives that are simple to make, that can make a cumulative big difference. And I appreciate that. It must be very rewarding to work with the sea turtles. They're so tiny.
Yeah, it is the coolest thing that I have ever done. It is amazing. I got to spend my nights, like a few hours a night, on the beach. Which, I mean, who needs therapy when you're on the beach at night? And just getting to see those babies go to the water, and I got to go to like nest excavations, and they dig up the nests, and I get to see the babies that are left there and help them go to the water, and it was just absolutely beautiful. I'm such an animal person. It was amazing.
Yeah, you are quite an animal person.
I am.
So, Tegan, any stories that you can think of from your life that you can tell us, just to give us a little bit bigger picture of you? Anything that you can think of from the past?
Let me think. What I'd say is just one of my favorite things that I ever did was go to Iowa with you guys for the Kindness Bowl.
Yeah.
When I went the first year with Emily, and we got to play around Grinnell, that was amazing. And then when I went the second time, and when I played at the nursing home, this is one of my favorite stories ever. I did not sell one CD, but I gave one away to a woman who could barely talk, but she was just so absolutely excited to just listen to the music and to get a CD, and it just like absolutely made my world.
Yeah, that was lovely. You're so wonderful, and it was such a treat to have you playing around town. And I know that the people at both care facilities you went to, it mattered a lot. And I think that's that kindness that you were talking about. And I like that you mentioned kindness when you talked about sustainability, because for us, with the Alliance for Sustainability, but also for Inclusivity, we believe that sustainability is bigger than just taking care of the earth. It's taking care of each other. It's creating a world that can go forward, and that means justice for people as well as for the planet and for the world. So I love that you mentioned that kindness was one of your sustainability goals. So the last thing that I wanted to ask you is, if you could look back over who you've played with so far, are there any musicians that really stand out that that were like, oh, this is so awesome that I get to play with or be in close contact with this person?
Um, well, at a folk conference, I got to share a showcase with Chuck Mitchell, which is Joni Mitchell's first husband. And that was amazing. I actually didn't know who he was before we performed, and my friend told me afterward, and I was like, thank God you didn't tell me beforehand. I would have been freaking out. But that was amazing. And also, just over the years, getting to play with my friends has been it's been just so fun. Like I said, the importance of enjoying the experience. I've gotten to do that because I've gotten to play with my friends.
And if there was one musician that you could say, boy, this is my favorite musician right now, who would that be?
Can I say two?
Yes.
Phoebe Bridgers is like one of my favorite artists of all time. And then lately I've been loving Maisie Peters, who is this British pop singer-songwriter who just loves her fans. You can tell she just interacts with them a lot over social media, and it's just such a fun writer. So I've just been loving them, and Phoebe is just this amazing singer-songwriter. I love her so much. I love them both.
Well, I love that. So Teghan, anything else you want to say before we close?
I think I'm good. I'm just really happy to be here, and so nice to talk to you.
Well, it is such a pleasure to talk to you and to learn more about your work and your passions and just you. I always like talking to you. And after you go back out on tour, then we'll have you back to talk to you again.
That would be wonderful.
Thank you so much for being here. And for everybody who's listening, thank you. This was our podcast, Inclusivi-TEA's Sustainability, with our amazing guest, Teghan Devon. And you can find Teghan at, where can we find you, Teghan?
You can find me on Instagram at Teghan Devon. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Teghan Devon Music. If you search, any streaming platforms for Teghan Devon, you'll be able to find my music. And then my website is teghandevonmusic.com.
And Teghan is Teghan?
Yes. And then Devon is Devon.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Teghan.